So I'd like to welcome everyone today to WAFA, which is the Wharton Alumni Founders and Funders Association. Our mission is to accelerate the success of Wharton and Penn founders, funders, and friends, as well as providing products and services that in general help women to be successful. What we realize is just like the world population, women make up more than 50% of world population, as well as the Penn student body and alumni. And so that's wonderful, but only 13% of the founders for Penn and Wharton are actually women, and they only get 6% of the venture investment. And this is really a great accomplishment because in general, women are only getting 2 to 3%. And if you are a woman of color, well, you can read about others, that's about as close as you may get, unless you are exceptionally lucky. And so we're looking to turn that around. And we are focusing on 3 key areas. One is to amplify the voices of our founders, funders, and friends. We want to connect everybody to build a really, really strong community. And we want to inspire by dynamic programming, which we hope you will enjoy today. Of course, you can find out more about us on our website, and we hope that this is how you found out about today's program. So we would like you to put your questions in the chat. There'll be opportunities where you may be able to interact, or I may call on somebody, and then there'll be opportunities for discussion. We try to include the bulk of our presentation before 1 o'clock, or on the hour, I should say, since we have folks from all over the world today, and then allow up to an extra half an hour of question and answering. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Anne Drummey. For those who weren't on at the beginning, if you love today's presentation, thank WAFA. If you don't, blame Canada, because Anne is joining us today from Ottawa. We are a global reach looking to connect everybody. But as she was sharing, she has spent time in the United States. She's also only in her 30s, wink, wink, although having spent close to 20 years in the US. One of my most exciting things that I learned about Anne was just as right before the pandemic and as the pandemic started, she had decided to be a world nomad, which is just amazing to be able to travel for short periods of time to pick up consulting projects around the globe. Her focus is on 4 key areas: accountability, motivation, coherence, and influence. So if I could ask folks to please mute your microphones. I don't want to do it on a general nature, because then we have to get into turning on and turning off. It gets to be an inconvenience, and I really want everything to flow smoothly. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Anne. Take it away.
All right. Thanks, Lori. Anna's the one with her mic on right now.
Okay. So I'm going to go see once I'm waiting for the list of participants to pop up so that I can.
The best and the caller.
And would you please mute your microphone?
If you put the harness on it,
I might be able to. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to start with a poll. Lori, are you ready?
I'll pull it right up. There we go.
Wondering what you often say about time. Pick as many as you want. Do you say, I'll catch up on the weekend, I'll do it when I can be more focused, I'll get to it when I get caught up, I just need to be a little more organized, I wish I had more willpower, that was a waste of my time, I wish everything would go to plan? Which of these really sound like the voice in your head? Which voice?
Good question.
Yeah. Okay, Lori, shall we share?
Here we go.
Okay. So, we're not alone in our woes about time. I say this proves that it's a universal challenge. All right.
Fucking so fucking stupid.
Somebody just came off mute, if you would like to mute. And I think because you're hosting, it's not letting me, oh, there it goes.
Okay. Okay. Hope Mike has a better day. If there are other lines that come to you, feel free to put it in the chat. Maybe getting it out of your head and into the chat will help you along. I do want to confirm if you're in the right place. This is for people who are frustrated, wanting to do it all, who regret procrastination and laziness, for people who feel pressure to always say yes. Maybe you can't find the pause button on the proverbial treadmill, or maybe you just wonder why controlling time is so hard. Yeah? So does that cover everybody? Because Laura has her hand up. Yeah. So as we get started, I have an ask and an offer. I ask that you engage with this as a conversation, not as a TV show. I'm not a television personality. In return, my goal is for you to leave with at least one thought or one tool that makes you feel lighter. So that's my ask and my offer. In the spirit of this being an interactive session, I'd like us to grant ourselves some permission slips. Now, this is a Brené Brown tool. It's a tool that you can do on your own, or you can incorporate into a group practice. As you start a working session, check in with yourself on how you're showing up. So for example, I am showing up wanting this to all go perfectly. That is my nature. But I am giving myself permission to be imperfect. Someone who feels low energy right now might give themselves permission to turn off their camera briefly for maybe 3 times through the session to give themselves a little bit of a break. Someone who is multitasking right now might give themselves permission to focus on us. And then I have a few others that are on the slide. Lori, can I ask you, is there a permission slip that comes to mind for you for showing up right now?
I have to agree with you about not being perfect. That is really hard as I'm learning more how to be the host for Zooms. You know, I always wait, did I start the recording? Have I talked about all the details? Did I cover everything? Did I stutter? And so I am learning to give myself permission to accept imperfection. So, yes, I'm learning on that one.
Okay.
It's a big.
Anybody else willing to share a permission slip they're granting themselves, either off mute or in the chat?
I just want to add, this is a no judgment zone.
I'm going to reinforce that I want to listen attentively and engage.
Thank you, Adan.
Anyone else, you can speak right up if you don't want to put it in the chat.
One that was really powerful to me that I heard from a client is the one to give yourself permission to adapt instructions to what works for me. And we will be doing some exercises. And if you start doing something a little bit differently, know that you are allowed to do that. This is all to find tools that help you. Oh, we have some in the chat.
2 great ones.
You want to read those, Lori?
Sure. Focus on being here, not thinking of all the other things I need to do today. Permission that I won't get everything done like I want, and that's okay. Feeling like there's never enough time and I'm always working. I will do it now, or I will do it right away.
Yeah, those sound like the voices in our head.
And I wish I had done that last week. You should have done that already. And I think I was sharing with you, Anne, in the beginning, that sometimes when I have something I don't want to do, something that I don't want to do more starts looking okay. And so I end up switching what I focus on, the lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my next question is, why is time management such a challenge? So right off, I want you to know that it is definitely not some weird personal flaw that is unique to you. Our poll proved that. I am telling you that. There are many external forces that are plotting against us. A metaphor that really resonates with me by Edward Hall is thinking of time as an unstoppable conveyor belt that brings us new tasks as fast as we can dispatch the old ones. And becoming more productive just seems to cause the belt to speed up, right? Does that resonate with anyone else? Yeah, Cecile's, yeah.
It reminds me of the Lucille Ball classic with the chocolates.
Yes. Yep. On top of that, we seem to constantly be battling back a legacy from factory hours, where employers pay us for a day's work. So many of the containers going by on the conveyor belt during specific hours, we believe our employer is paying us to fill, and so we feel guilty if we don't. And we see endless messaging about planning for our futures, whether it's retirement accounts, mortgages, dream vacations, bucket lists. All right, I'm feeling stressed just saying all of that. We pick up expectations for ourselves, which when we pause to truly look at them, we might realize are impossible. I will get everything done. I will make up time after dinner. I will craft the perfect plan, system, schedule. I will be set for an amazing retirement. None of these are sustainable. None of these are actually things that we as human beings can do. So why do we hold these mindsets if they are so unhelpful? Is it because we believe that if we don't strive, then we are an underachiever? Maybe we're selfish, we're short-sighted? Is it because we believe if we just go with it and not push back, then we can avoid the discomfort of making some tough decisions? And we can avoid facing that blank piece of paper that defines success for ourselves? Maybe. Why do we avoid decisions? Often it's fear of making a mistake, fear of hurting someone, fear of disappointing someone. Maybe we feel pressure to stay with the status quo. Maybe we're indifferent to the outcome. Maybe we're exhausted. Maybe you have other answers to why we avoid decisions. Anybody notice what these have in common? What do these words have in common?
They're all negative.
They're all negative what? I'm going to suggest they're emotions. Yeah. And there's such a hard irony to this. It's our emotions that keep us from making decisions because we want to avoid emotions. It's just a cycle. Another social construct is that we think decisions should be entirely rational. But as human beings, there is no such thing as an unemotional decision. So my biggest point of this session is that to improve our relationship with time, we need to accept that we don't have to make decisions, we get to make decisions. And we will field a wide variety of emotions as we do so. And we can trip at each step of decision making. And it's those trips in decision making that we categorize as time management problems. So let's go through the 4 steps of decision making and explore this further. So that's gather, narrow, choose, and move on. Okay. The first step is to gather lots of ideas and options. For a healthy decision, we need more than one option. The key is to tap into exploration mode, curiosity, creativity. If we trip here, we wind up procrastinating. We feel internal resistance to even look around or focus. We're ambivalent or bored. We surrender our agency, or we just check out. We need a toolkit nearby with ways to activate our imagination. So an exercise that I recommend is called a question burst. And we're going to do one right now. If I can get my computer to go again.
Can I ask a quick question before you go on?
Go ahead.
When you say if you trip, you mean what does it mean to trip? I don't understand.
If you struggle with that step in decision making, if instead of smoothly going through that step, you stumble, you struggle, then I call that like you're tripping over something and not getting through that step of the decision-making process.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, if you see yourself procrastinating, it may be because you're struggling with gathering?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. Okay, let's try the tool called Question Burst. So get something to write on or write with or type on a computer. Cecile's got her paper. Okay. I would like you to—
I struggle with procrastination, so I'm super excited.
Right.
Right.
We did this one just for you. Everybody else is just.
So consider something that you're resisting or anxious about. Maybe it's a person you want to meet, an opinion piece that you want to post publicly, an event that's coming up. I'm going to start a timer, not just yet, but I'm going to start it for 60 seconds. In that time, I want you to write down any and all questions that pop into your head, but only questions. Do not answer any of them. Do not censor yourself. Just write the questions as they come to you as you think about your topic. All right? So everyone ready? Lori, are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
Okay, I'm going to start the 60 seconds right now. Okay, that was 60 seconds.
Wow.
Reviewing your list, how do you feel now compared to before? You can let me know in the chat or off mute, or just with a thumbs if you're feeling a little better, if you're feeling about the same, or if you're actually feeling worse. Adam's feeling better, Anna's feeling better. Lori, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling better too. I think for me, it's all about asking, what am I so afraid of that the mistake could be? Why am I struggling to answer? I need to build a presentation. I was trying to think of the title, how to structure it, and just not able to focus, not able to get it. And yet I'm excited about it, excited about the partner, but just unable to, until this morning, to be able to formulate it.
Yeah.
And so questioning, what was I so afraid of about being perfect, getting exactly the right words? What happens if it's slightly off?
Yeah. Well, I see in the chat we have a whole mix of some people who feel better, some who feel about the same, and some who feel a little worse. So the people, the creator of the question burst has done a lot of research on it and says about 85% of the time we feel we're in a better headspace afterwards. So I offer that as encouragement. Maybe next time you do it for 2 minutes instead of 1, and that might give you a little more time. Or maybe on a different question or a different issue after a question burst, you will feel a little differently than you feel right now. So that does mean that 15% of the time you come out with a sense that maybe the issue is bigger than you thought it was, or that you realize you yourself are a bigger part of the problem than you initially thought. And those insights are okay too. It's all helpful toward reframing the challenge. It's helpful to getting you moving forward. Did anyone have questions that were uncomfortable or really surprised them as they came out onto the piece of paper? Yeah, Laura says yes. Uncomfortable, surprising questions. Those can be the ones that can give you, a new sense of energy. Did anyone discover at least one new idea? Anyone get at least one new idea? Cool. Okay. Picking one question from the list that encourages you to action is what can help get you moving and into that new idea headspace. Oh yeah, we have a few. Yep, a few people in the chat did find one new idea. I'm going to share that I did this back when I was just starting my coaching certification program and my business. I was feeling pretty unsure and had some worries. I had a lot of worries. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I found that after writing this list of random questions down, I felt more empowered. And that's a word that I think I saw in the chat as well. The question that jumped off the page to me at that time was, who can help me? And that surprised me. I didn't anticipate that question showing up on the sheet of paper, but I started to think of a few new people who could help me. And that made me even more energized. So I offer the question burst as a tool that can help you get jump started when you sense that you're in that procrastination mindset. All right. The second step in decision making is to narrow down your options. And no, my personal opinion is that you cannot gather just the perfect number of options in step 1 and skip step 2, in case you're even thinking about it, all right? This step is important for refining and aligning your expectations. The key is to bring the choices down to a manageable number. So, Lori, I'll put you on the spot again.
Absolutely.
If you were standing in front of a display of jams, would you find it easier to pick one from a selection of 30 jars or a selection of 5 jars?
Probably 5.
Yeah, most people would say 5. There was actually a study about this. And the store sold less jam if the display had 30 than if the display had 5. Our brains might think, oh, but I could find that super specialty jam and that will be the one I buy. But what happens instead is we just get overwhelmed and we leave.
And I think that's an important part, Anne. I, throughout my high school and college years, did retailing. And sometimes when we had really wide displays of multiple colors, people did get overwhelmed and they did walk out. We ended up with no sale at all.
Yeah.
We limited it to the top 5 or 6, whatever was the right number. It's amazing how much sales went up. And rarely do we have somebody ask for something we didn't have.
Yeah. Wild, right? Another feeling I want to remind you of is that feeling when you discarded a choice only for it to like pop right back up again. So if I ask you if you want pizza or Chinese food for dinner, and you quite honestly say that either is fine, and then I say, okay, let's have Chinese food, and then like that you suddenly want pizza. You know? So that feeling is your instinct, and you can trust your instinct that when you're narrowing things down for something, you know, a little bigger than dinner, you won't be losing a unicorn. Just like Lori, you said, whoever narrowed down at that store, they knew instinctively this is really the core and nobody's going to ask for something that we've cut from the inventory. So if we trip here, we wind up saying yes to everything. We buy all the jam, right? We let other people dictate our priorities. We don't delegate. We sacrifice our ambitions and needs over and over again, delaying them until someday. What we need is a toolkit nearby with ways to clarify expectations, our own and others. All right, we have an interaction moment here again with another poll. Get those mice ready. Why is it hard to say no? Is it because we have a fear of repercussions? We have a desire to impress? We feel pressure being the only one who can do it? We worry about disappointing others? We have a drive to experience everything possible? Maybe we need validation or acceptance? Why is it hard to say no? We're getting some answers. All of the above. Yes. Lori, when you think we're at a steady state, feel free to share.
So we're about 3/4, so that's it.
Okay, so pretty much all of those reasons and more, right? We have a few more that were added in the chat. Feel free to add some more as well. Is it possible anybody here thought that saying no was something uniquely difficult for them and that everybody else seemed to be able to say it more easily? So I just want to share, this is a universal challenge as well. There's so many reasons why it's hard to say no, and we all have to work on this. So an exercise that I recommend is also from Brene Brown, called Defining, or Paint Done For Me is how she calls it. When you're asked to do something, or even when you put it on your own to-do list, pause and ask follow-up questions. And these are the 3 questions. What does done look like? what is a first check-in point, and what can I take my attention away from to do this? I need a volunteer to do a demonstration. Anybody willing to do a little bit of role playing with me?
Oh, we have Cecile who's interested.
Okay. Cecile, can you come off
Just
mute?
writing those notes, but what is the first check-in? Okay,
Cecilia, you ready?
yes.
Okay, I'm going to play the role of your boss, and I'm going to ask you for something. And when I do, to yourself, notice what you imagine this task involves, what you imagine this task looks like. And when you're ready, ask me the first question on the list. Okay? All right. Cecile, I need the demographics report for Q2 for my meeting this Friday.
What does done look like? Should I change that into, okay, okay.
What does done look like? I need to be able to say how our participation has changed in our usual categories. So I just need the data. I don't need a formatted report or a memo.
Okay, so could I just get you a download from the system? Well, that would be my question. What is the first check-in point? Is that what you're asking me to do in this exercise, to reframe the sentence? What is the first check-in point?
You can just ask, what is a first check-in point?
Okay, what is the first check-in point?
See if at first pass, any of the trends have gone up or down a lot. If it's stable, then we might just stop right there.
Okay. So what can I take? What can take my attention away? Okay, what can I take my attention away from in order to do this for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cecile. And I apologize, I didn't really think this was one of those, oh, just squeeze it in. But now that you've asked, I think you can skip doing the weekly update of website traffic this week. Okay?
Okay, okay.
All right. Thanks, Cecile. You have narrowed down all of the ways that your brain might have been imagining what the report might have looked like, down to something much more manageable, I hope.
And also how to fit it in, because I started thinking about reports, and I think I do that where someone asks me to do something and I start planning how to do it. Whereas this is kind of saying, what is it they actually want?
Yeah.
And recognizing you were doing something before you got this request, which I think I forget. So then I have to ask, what should I put down in order to pick this up? So it's a kind of a cool way to remind yourself that you don't really know what they want. You've already started giving them a big buffet when they just wanted a snack, and got to drop something in order to do it. So figure that out kind of first. I think that's.
Yeah. You can deliver this presentation now.
Okay, what can I take my attention away from?
Particularly the word report. Like when I would hear that word, I immediately was imagining something that's like spiral bound, that's got graphics, has an executive summary. So to sort of pause and think, well, maybe they just want the data. Like Cecile, like you said, like, could I just give you the data? And the idea of what can I take my attention away from is basically saying, is this authority? And sometimes when you get to question 3, you might be talking to yourself, or you might be talking to your boss or whoever you're engaging with, and they check themselves and say, you know what you're working on right now is actually more important. I'm going to withdraw the request and go work with the intern to do this, or tell so-and-so that I can't get it to them on Friday, or whatever.
So we've had a request. Could you explain again what a first check-in point is, please?
It's a way of trying to create some moment between the request and when it's done. So a report that I was thinking of might take 3 days to pull together, but is there a point in the first day or in the first hour? Is there some point where we could check in on this just to make sure that we both have the same definition of done? So maybe it's, maybe the answer could be, get back to me in an hour and let me know what you found. It could be, once you've run the system, once you've written a page, some interim milestone where you can check back in just to make sure that you're not doing more than you need to, really. Is there more in the chat?
I think there's a great, in your third one, how many times do we just add to the list we already have and then resent that that means it's going to be working later or over the weekend or whatever it is? We just, we don't even think we have the option to say, oh, you know, I'm already full. How you know, from that wonderful buffet that Cecile's provided for us, you know, I can give something up. Wow, I didn't know that I could do an exchange.
Yeah, yeah. There's sort of the theory around this of when you say yes to something also means saying no to something else. Any other reactions to how the demonstration went? Did it seem like something people could try on their own? Yeah? I hope so.
And
So-
the check-in point is for the benefit of the person who's asking, who's making the request?
It will benefit both of you. And in the weird meta version where you're asking yourself to do something, it'll benefit you twice. So it allows for you to get a sense of, am I going in the right direction? Am I not spinning my wheels, wasting my time? And it gives whoever requested a chance to say, oh, you know, you've actually given me 85% of what I needed, and I now don't think I need the rest of it. So we can say we're done now. I'm changing the definition of done to right now. Which, if you don't have that check-in point, you lose that opportunity of finishing early, basically.
Well, and I would also, this is Karen Burns, say almost I agree with that 100%, but then I also have encountered the opposite, where we do a check-in and it's an opportunity to scope what they really need, where they decide, oh, well, yeah, I need more than 2 years worth of data. Give me 3, you know, give me 5, and which is a completely different scope of work than just giving 1 year of data or whatever, you know, the exercise is. So the chance to calibrate that, because some people think, oh, well, if you're giving me 1 year of data, how hard can it be to give me, you know, 5? You know, where that's a whole different can of worms. So
Yeah.
that check-in point is huge. And to ask it would incorporate the question when I do it, you know, what does success look like? What does the output look like? And do you just need that summary, or do you need all the backup data in case somebody asks you a backup, you know, a detailed question? So scoping it is really huge. because a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do X, Y, or Z.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree 100%.
Thanks, Karen. All right.
We've had some discussion about whether it matters if you're the one asking for the task or the one providing the task. But I think about how many times have you given somebody directions and you know exactly what you have in mind. And the other person is coming from the opposite direction. And so they think they know exactly, and you end up in two different points because you never calibrated the assumptions that you made. So I think this is a great idea. And if you check up front how much time and energy you can save by, we're on the same sheet, we're coming from the same direction, whatever the details need to be.
Yeah, yeah. Even when you're asking something of yourself, like if I've challenged myself to I want to put a blog post up. If I ask myself these questions, I can refine what that image is of the blog post. And I can go from thinking, oh, it has to be 1,000 words to, well, what does it look like? Well, maybe it's 300 words and a picture. What is the first check-in point? Well, let me just do a first draft in 15 minutes, see what I can write in 15 minutes, and then re-gauge if it's a short blog post. What can I take my attention away from today? Well, maybe I don't send messages on LinkedIn today so that I can do the blog post. And now I feel like, okay, I've narrowed things down. I have a much better idea of what my choices are.
Well, and to throw in one more idea, this is Karen again. I don't have, the internet attributes it to Ben Franklin, but I've always loved this quote. If I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter. And I've had, so many people that just say, oh, well, I don't need a lot. Just give me, 5, whatevers, or bullet points, or summarize it. Well, summarizing it takes a whole lot more time than just giving you a data dump. So, they don't realize that the more compact, the less you think you want isn't necessarily the easiest to produce, just the opposite. It's easier to just, do mass quantities rather than have to synthesize it and summarize it and get those golden nuggets, that's buried in the data or whatever. And I've been on the giving and receiving end of that, that issue, because sometimes I find myself making the same assumption, like, well, how hard can it be? Do one table. I don't need 8 pages. I just need one. Well, Ben Franklin says that's going to take a lot more time. So, and I believe Ben Franklin hugely.
I definitely do too.
I had heard it attributed to Mark Twain. And Elizabeth is saying the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's brilliant regardless of who said it.
Sorry for sending you a long letter. I didn't have enough time to send you a short one. I believe something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
All right. So let's put defining done in your toolkit. We have 2 more steps in decision making. The third is to choose. So to take committed action, to say yes, to say no. The key is to leverage both sort of your IQ and rational input and your EQ and your gut input. Your gut, or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't actually have a connection with the part of your brain that has speech. So that means it's inarticulate, but that doesn't mean that it's unsophisticated. We can get a lot of strong messages if we listen for them. So anyone remember a time when you just knew what to do, but you couldn't explain why? My example is when I entered this apartment, I just knew this was my home. I couldn't explain it to you as to why. It took a little bit of time, but I just knew. That was my EQ and my gut chiming in on my choice. If we trip here, we get overwhelmed. We struggle with the pressure of having to do something. we're unable to figure out where to start. We go down rabbit holes, we make endless spreadsheets. I admit to that. We need a toolkit nearby with ways to hear our gut and to initiate action. So here is a super simple exercise that I recommend. It's just to hit play in your mind's Spotify account of Stevie Wonder singing, "I Just Called to Say I Love You." Even just hearing me say the name of the song, I trust you can hear it, right? Lori, can you hear it?
Unfortunately, what's in my head, you can't hear because I can't sing.
Do you feel any different already?
I do. I feel
Yeah.
happier, more relaxed, off the hook.
Yeah, wrapped into one statement, even one portion of the song. It's a reminder to let your heart communicate with you, to let your shoulders drop, close your eyes, perhaps see what happens in your body when you think about the narrowed list that you have to choose from. This line is also a reminder to reach out to others. A quick one-line exchange with a friend can break a spell of overwhelm and remind you of what's important and guide your choice. Plus, this statement reinforces keeping things simple. A choice doesn't have to be to run a marathon. It can be simply to choose to put your running shoes on. So I offer this as a simple, tiny little tool in your toolkit that you can use to practice letting your heart, letting your gut be part of your choice to get you through overwhelm. So go play the song. The last step is to move on, right? To move into your choice. Let yourself be surprised and curious about what it opens up next. The key is to accept that you will never know if you did the right thing anyway. You will never know. If we trip here, we get FOMO, the fear of missing out. We get anchored by trying to keep our options open. We dwell on wondering what is best instead of just considering, well, what is good enough to keep moving forward? So we need a toolkit nearby with ways to set a personal intention. So an exercise I recommend is a visualization, and we can do one together right now. So I'm going to ask you to settle in where you are. Maybe close your eyes. Notice your feet touching the floor. Maybe you feel your back against the chair. You're going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And imagine yourself on an ideal Wednesday in 2027, 5 years from today. Where are you living? Who is around you? How did you start your day? How did you end your day? What do you see, hear, and taste around you? What excites you about your work? What activities make you smile? What advice would you give as a mentor? So we're going to take another deep breath in and then let it out. And you can slowly open your eyes and let me know how that felt. Ooh, okay.
Session's over, right? You win and leave.
I know what I knew to be true. Yeah. So this is to help us get past the fear of missing out, to get past the what keeps us holding on to other options. It helps us release, move forward with the choice we made so that we can experience new things and not be anchored in what sort of hedging what our bets might have been. Mentor thought was trust that will all work out. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, Paris said that was fun. Great. Okay. And in the, we're sharing the deck, right, Lori? So in the deck, I'll have those questions if you want to reflect back on that again. All right, so the decision-making process is gather, narrow, choose, and move on. And we can trip at each of those steps. I am curious to know from everyone in this next poll, which of these 4 steps is the easiest for you and which is the hardest for you? Which of these 4 is the easiest for you and which of the 4 is the hardest? So is it easy to come up with lots of ideas? Is it hard to narrow them down? Is it easy to choose in the moment? Is it hard to just set that aside and move on? Or do you dwell on whether you made the right choice?
Folks are giving it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Not a quick answer. I can see that people are taking a little bit more time to be introspective and to really think about. So we'll let it run a little bit because
sometimes it depends on the scale of the decision that you're going through.
so I'm going to end it since we're around 75%.
Okay. What are you noticing, Lori?
Well, it seems that, do you not see the results at a gathering? Okay, I just want to make sure, double checking my poll skills. It's interesting for me, narrow is the hardest. I say yes to everything. And then, feel guilty if I don't do it, even though I do know what my preference might be and where I want to spend my time and energy. But this feeling of obligation that I have to be all things to all people, or somehow I'm letting somebody somewhere down.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, that's for the second one, the hardest part. My apology. I'm so busy saying yes.
What I see, and it always turns out this way, is that someone here finds your hardest one their easiest one.
That's a good point.
And someone here finds your easiest one to be their hardest.
Certainly holds true for choose.
Yeah. So yeah, a bunch of people here find choosing hard, but then there's a whole bunch of other people who find choosing easy. That alone, I hope you take away as sort of a self-awareness that you might be able to help other people in their decisions, and they might be better able to help you, because we don't all struggle in the same place. So I would ask if any thoughts came to mind that we could share with each other on ways that we can get through the hard steps. If something comes to mind, I want to give you a moment to be able to share that. If in seeing this, you realize, oh my goodness, some people struggle with gathering, but that's like the easiest part for me because I do this. Now is a chance that you could share some of your own insights with your colleagues.
I'm also wondering, Anne,
Mhm.
by knowing where our hardest areas are, if there isn't some way we can almost trick ourselves into finding ways to make it fun, to set up a framework or take the pressure off. So
Yeah.
saying like, I know this is my hardest area. This gives me anxiety. I feel stress. Whatever it is, and realize that's okay. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with me. And I'm going to make a game out of it. If I have trouble coming up with 10 questions, I'm going to make a game. If I hit 5, I get a reward. If I hit 7, and we were talking earlier with Leah about being in Hershey, maybe I get some M&Ms in there.
Yeah.
It's a game, it's fun, and it takes that pressure and anxiety away.
Yeah. One that a client shared with me is that she struggled with gathering. She just wanted to jump right to narrowing down. So her technique was to pick a date on the calendar to say, I'm not allowed to narrow down until this date. So it just literally gave her a window to see what she could do for gathering. Whether she gathered more or not, she at least gave herself some space to do that, and tried not to get to the narrow phase until a certain date. And that helped her. Do we have a few in the chat?
We do. We have some great ones in the chat. I especially identify with the litmus test. I had a decision that I had to make, and I knew in my gut what was the right decision, but my mind was over talking it, saying yes, but yes, but yes, but. And so I talked to my sister, and she said, "Trust your gut. It's okay to let it go." I'm like, oh, I thought so, and I did feel that rush of relief and not feeling guilty. And it was the right decision, but I needed help to accept it and then to enjoy that it was good and feel good about the decision.
Yeah. So I've shared 4 exercises and tools. You've just started helping each other, which is another way to help get yourself through decisions. I have a few other suggestions of things that you can do to make the most of this session that we've done together right now. Suggestions: the next person you talk to, the very next person, maybe it's the mailman, I don't know. Tell them one thing that you heard in this session. Doesn't even have to be something you agree with or that you understood. But whoever you see next, tell them, hey, I just listened to this and I remember her saying blah, blah, blah. Another thing you could try is to set an alarm for a random time tomorrow and name the emotion or the emotions that you're feeling when the alarm goes off, just as a way to continue to get in touch with what you're feeling. You can give yourself a permission slip before your next meeting. And you could pick one of the aspects of decision making to experiment with more over the next 6 to 12 weeks. So lots of potential homework that you can choose to carry forward. As we transition to Q&A, I am curious to get a sense of how everyone feels about time now. So we're launching the poll to get a sense of whether anything's shifted for you. Are you feeling about the same as when we started? Are you feeling maybe a little more prepared to face tough decisions? A little more prepared to reframe expectations? A little more inspired to just roll with it? What do you think, Lori?
So we're about 3/4 again.
Okay.
So I think there's been some real positive change.
Yeah. I am so happy to see that on your behalf, on everyone's behalf, that there's been a bit of a positive shift. And I hope it's not temporary. I hope that something that we've covered today you can really hold on to, and that it can continue to help you feel lighter and more prepared and have a positive relationship with time. So Lori, could we do maybe a little bit of Q&A and then
I think that would be great. So
I'm happy to answer questions like, why do curlers sweep the ice in front of the rock?
And I think because we're such a good sized group, feel free to just ask out loud, just be, courteous to, one at a time. But so Lynn, since your hand is up first, please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, my video is not working, so that's why I don't have it on. I got some good stuff out of this. My problem is, and I'm not sure you can answer this, is I have what I call multiple squirrel moments. I will be organized, but a little bit of my personality, if you do true colors, is I'm an orange. So I get pulled away, and I'll look up something for work, which might be work related, and I notice 10 minutes later, I'm reading daiquiri recipes, and I'm like, what the heck? How do you keep yourself tuned in, I think, is my biggest struggle, is stop the squirrel moments.
Well, my first instinct was to think about your approach to deadlines. Like if you were looking up something for work and then looked at daiquiris, but by the end of the work day, you had accomplished whatever the goal was, then you spending time on daiquiris seems less important to change. So maybe there's a relationship with deadlines. It could be finding ways to impose deadlines on yourself to help curb the squirrel moments, or finding ways to be gentle with yourself about deadlines, and acknowledge, yeah, I thought I was going to do that in 10 minutes, but it's really not slowing anyone down for another 6 hours. So if this sort of scattered approach to things actually comes together at a moment that I've defined for done, then maybe it's all working out to your superpower, which is probably gathering all kinds of dots and connecting them in new ways the rest of us can't do.
That's an interesting way of thinking, because I do get stuff done, but I feel like I'm constantly like a tennis ball bouncing all over. A squash ball is probably the best. I mean, I get things done, but I feel like I'm the squash ball constantly bouncing everywhere and never in one spot. So, okay, well, thank you.
So a question for you, Lynn, when you're doing your squirrel runs, do you feel energized or do you feel distracted? Do you punish yourself? Because I know for me personally, I was thinking of an example, like if you have a couple of pots on a stove, you may be stirring one and then you go restir another pot because the first pot you stirred doesn't need to be stirred. And so, but it's still cooking. And sometimes I find I may be thinking about things, it's not front and center, but that holiday that I'm taking, that little mental vacation to go down the rabbit hole or squirrel away some additional nuts, is actually giving me the opportunity to look more creatively because I've let go of the tight restrictions on that first pot. And so when I come back to it, it's actually better than if I had only focused on that one the entire time. I might get new inspiration, a different perspective. So sometimes it's actually enhancing the solution as opposed to conflicting with it. And again, it depends on your situations and the other impacts that it has, but it could actually be what gives you your magic and your superpowers.
Yeah.
Actually, you raise a good point. I call it percolating. I'll be like, I'll have something percolating in the background and it'll pop up. I think my biggest challenge for me is I'm pretty good at forgiving about it's when I'm at night and I cannot get my brain to stop working, or it's at 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm a fixer, I'm a doer, and I get angry, be like, just go to bed. And that's the part that annoys me is I can't get my brain to stop working because I'm not accomplishing as much as I want. So it's, again, a little bit of squirrel and a little bit of maybe overachiever. I have no idea, but thank you.
Yeah, that phrase, not accomplishing, might be another version of redefining done, of what is it that your brain is imagining is the definition of a full day or fully accomplishing, and could you push on that to get it clearer and less bossy, I guess. The other thought is just physical releases, whether it's, the gadgets in your hand that might help you stay focused on a work thing while your hands are doing something else, or including physical activity in the morning or in the evening as a way to force your brain to connect with your body and less to just spin on its own. Okay.
There's one other option you can do is write it down. If you're in bed and you wake up or you can't fall asleep, sometimes it's because you're afraid you're going to lose the thought. So by writing it down and knowing that you've captured it, then allows the release. Just make sure you write clearly and enough that when you wake up in the morning, like, I have no idea what that means. But sometimes that also allows you to let go.
Yeah. In those moments of, the brain not letting you rest, maybe the question burst could be the tool that could help as well. Lori, could we do the memorable moments?
Sure.
What I would love to hear, partly to know that something through this time together resonated, is to hear one thing that made an impression on you. And as much as it's to help me, it is also more to help you. If you can write down in the chat or say aloud one thing that you are leaving with, then the more likely it is that you will have it at your fingertips later today, tomorrow, when you suddenly might need it. So if you can let me know, what is one thing that you heard in the session that made an impression on you?
I think for me, Anne, is realizing I'm just like everybody else. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm normal, and that I am in control, and that I just have to take that responsibility and believe it.
Yeah. And there are outside forces that are plotting against you.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say no. As a matter of fact, it's good to say no.
Mm-hmm. The question burst. Katie's remembering that. Level setting expectations when someone asks you for something. Yeah, that whole, just the 3 questions of what does done look like? When can we check in? And what can I stop doing in order to do this?
And I think to Cecile's, it's not just tools, but there are people to help. And
Yeah.
if we go back to what's yours easy for you and hard for you, you can find somebody who can help with what's hard, and maybe what's easy for you, you can help them. That's an amazing opportunity as well.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. Joy remembers the Stevie Wonder song. That's great. Awesome. I so appreciate everyone participating. And thanks, Lori, for this opportunity to share.
Well, thank you, Anne. And if you will share your contact information so folks know how to reach out to you, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
I have had the wonderful pleasure of knowing Anne now for several months. We met serendipitously and clicked, and like, oh my God, yes, I need help. And I know so many people that need help. So if you're interested in learning more about how she can help you individually or help your team, please take the opportunity to reach out to Anne, share a conversation, share with her that you met her here through this presentation, and she, will discount her prices for Wharton WAFA attendees. We don't do hard sell. It's all about you walking away. But if you've been moved and you see opportunities for not only improvement but to feel better, I encourage you to reach out to Anne. Absolutely delightful. We usually run over time because we get so excited and talking. So thank you all for sharing. Please look forward to future WAFA events. We try to have at least 2 a month. We also have a tea every other month on the first Sunday so that we can encourage networking, so you can help find those people who can balance you out where it's not your strength. So thank you. If anybody wants to share any last comments or questions, we would be more than happy to answer them for you. And again, Anne, thank you so much.
If you don't have anything scheduled for the next few minutes, I would encourage you to sit with the memorable moment that you had today. Review any notes that you took. Give the gift of this unscheduled time to check in with yourself before you simply move on to the next Zoom.
And we really do appreciate your comments, because it helps to reinforce for each of us learning experiences.
Oh, thanks for the thank yous in the chat.
And
Can
again,
I pop in with a question?
we will be sending out the video and the decks. Just give us a little time as we reorganize who's going to be doing that for our team. So thank you very much. And we wish you a most wonderful day and wonderful time reflecting. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody.